you guys can sort of peek over here, I'm just going to do a quick drive-by because it's pretty visual differences. And this was part of our field school this year. We called it the Crop Scene Investigator. And so much of the good agronomy work that's done by Ag Canada and Alberta Ag and whoever else has shown the benefits of doing things right. You know, that whole 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 5 kind of thing. We thought that it would be fun to sort of demonstrate what happens when you do 3 things wrong. Just little things wrong. And then in that, it probably shows that 3 things right. So as we're going by all of these crops, we've got what we tried to do everything right, and then where we made mistakes, and then we did it right again. So we've always sandwiched it, and you never get to see that visual difference in a field because everything's done one way in the field. So this is kind of neat. This one here, the 3 things that we did wrong was we had too much residue. We had a lot of residue, and we had a low seeding rate, 3 seeds per meter squared. And when we walked up to it, and guys literally had to go out and diagnose what went wrong, it was so easy to say that it was the straw was the problem, the major problem. So it was a bit of a red herring, I think. Whereas the major problem was that we had Odyssey residue here. So it's like we had sprayed Odyssey last year. We simulated that residue. And when you had those 3 things, you could see how quickly you can have a wreck. Not really major mistakes, but a few of them all together, pretty huge. I do have to admit though, the straw we put down a little bit too heavy too, so it was a pretty big influencer. But it's kind of neat to be able to see what happens towards the end of the season. They weren't quite as visually striking at the field school back in the end of June. Can you pull forward? So this one here, you can still see pretty clearly there's a big difference as we go from our everything good to this plot to everything good again. These ones were, we seeded too fast. We seeded at 8 miles an hour. We seeded too deep, probably about 1.5 inches. Ironically, I think this actually came up better because it got to the moisture. So early in the spring, this looked better, I think. And the only other thing we did here was that we sprayed our herbicide early in the morning. 3 pretty minor mistakes, and the visual difference right now I think is just striking. What do you guys think? So you keep hearing your canola agronomists and councils talking about those factors. This is pretty good proof why you should be listening. We had no sulfur, no phosphorus. I kind of think the phosphorus effect is kicked in the most here because we had really low background phosphorus. And we tried to do a bit of an Odyssey carryover in the spray tank. So simulating the fact that if you sprayed your peas and you didn't rinse out properly and sprayed the canola. But again, not anything major, but probably impacts the bottom line pretty significantly. So I think wheat could be a little more forgiving. Here we put down 100 pounds of phosphorus with the seed. Again, normally should have really hurt the crop. I think, however, that it responded well to the fertilizer. We did no in-crop herbicide. You can see there are some weeds there. And then we tried a UAN burn by putting down UAN with a flat fan nozzle, but it really didn't actually do a heck of a lot. So in this case, probably responding to the fertilizer, yeah. Again, this one, our mistakes were we had off types. Couldn't see this at the field school, but it's nobody got that one in June.
Yeah, exactly.
We did not. Yeah, we didn't do a pre-seed burn down, and we also applied ethyl at the wrong timing, which can be damaging. But this was an early application, and I'm not sure that we necessarily see any effect of it, to be honest with you. Yeah. So in this case, we did a very heavy seeding rate. We broadcast fertilized, which would normally you think would cause more weed issues. And we've also heard that some people have had issues with leaving finish in their spray tanks. So not actually rinsing that out properly, but I don't think we saw an effect of that one. So to be honest with you, I think that wheat's just really well adapted to Western Canada, and it's harder to make mistakes on wheat than these other crops. Is that fair to say? Yeah.
It's interesting, like the plant counts on this. So this one was right in about, even though we seeded 700, this one came in at 300 plants per square meter, so 30 plants per square foot, which would be kind of a target in some situations, right? Compared to about 15
You seeded 700.
or 150. Yeah, it was one of those challenging springs, where not everything emerged, but
So this one also was that really high seeding rate, broadcast the fertilizer, no pre-seed burn down or in crop.
It's pretty clean for that.
Not bad. I mean, I think that high seeding rate chokes it out pretty good. So the peas here, this one, we had damaged seeds, so I think it was about 30% of the seeds were cracked. So that's going to affect the seeding rate. We didn't put any nitrogen inoculant here, and we sprayed Odyssey just a tiny bit late, so just after the 6th leaf stage. And I think we could see a pretty significant difference between the checks on this one.
did you get the field school, Ken?
About 280.
Yeah, 280 people tramping through the plot, so that may have had some influence.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's a cattle.
Yeah. So this one we had no seed treatment. We did our pre-seed burn down, actually a post-seed burn down, but just a tiny bit late, so there was just a small amount of emergence coming up. And we also had no matador. We had a tremendous amount of pea leaf weevil here, so basically we just let this one go. But despite the traffic, I think there's a pretty significant effect there. Lots of times you'd walk up to this crop and say it's great without having that one to compare it to. So this one we cheaped out on our seeding rate, about 60% of our seeding rate. We did a pre-seed burn down with pre-pass and no phosphorus. So the pre-pass did a pretty significant damage to the peas, I think, on this one.